If there was one place that everyone remembers in Hurst, it was CA's restaurant. That's where everyone met. Business deals were struck, friendships were built, and families gathered around comfort food and their famous chicken fried steak. To make that staple of Texas comfort food, you need an egg or two, some flour, salt and pepper, a tenderized piece of beef, and a hot greased skillet. To make a community, it takes a few ingredients too. Fire and police for the public safety, schools for the education of children, parks and a library for the enhancement of life, and a few churches for those seeking to fulfill their spiritual needs, while forming strong connections in the community. In the 70s, as small as it might be, Hurst was shaping up as a well-rounded community, a quality place to live, and the place to find the best chicken fried steak around.
When I was 13, I started working there. They'd had somebody go on vacation during the summer. So I ended up working from the time I was 13 all the way through high school. They were famous for the chicken fried steak. That's what CA's was famous for. And so I made a whole lot of chicken fried steaks growing up.
The best homemade rolls you could ever get. And he did like sort of home cooking type stuff.
Everybody knew CA. That was a restaurant to go to in Hurst. When you went out to eat, you go to CA's, and that's where you ran into a lot of people. I mean, we'd all get together on Friday night or Saturday night and go to CA's and eat.
I mean, it was the only place in town to eat, and on Friday and Saturday nights you couldn't get in the place.
Friday nights, everybody went to the football field. I mean, it was just a given.
Football games were at the old Pennington Field over on Pipeline. There was also across the street a pig farm over on in the Bedford side of Pipeline. So if the wind was blowing the wrong direction, you could smell that, the pig farm in the stand while you're in the stands.
We'd also hang out in Bel Air Shopping Center. That was a place to go cruise and go to the movie and take your girlfriend and ride around the parking lot and that was a big deal on the weekends.
You would have hundreds of kids from areas all over that would come to Bel Air Shopping Center and take the cruise. You would start at one end, let's say a Bel Air Shopping Center, and they just drive back to the other end and circle and come all the way back and just go back and forth.
Neighborhoods had kids in them. I mean, this was a young city at that time with a lot of young families, and the kids all got out and played together.
Well, we didn't worry about the kids then. They went to each other's house and played and had a good time. And there was a place down in what's now Morrisdale where the kids used to go ride their bikes, and that was called Devil's Bend. I think it was real hilly, and they could ride up and down the hills, and so they had a good time doing that.
In Hurst, the kids had the parks, and they learned to swim and lifeguard, and those things that helped them along in life. That was so first. Hurst had the facilities for kids and grown-ups, and the parks and recreation.
Well, while I was on the Park Recreation Board, we bought a lot of land as community parks, so we convinced the city council to buy the land for Chisholm Park for a 50-acre park, and we paid about $1,700 an acre for the land up there. So we put a large swimming pool at Chisholm Park and some ball fields.
And I do remember when they built, you had the main pool over on Central for the city, but then when they built the pool for Chisholm, there was no houses or anything around. And I do remember my mom making a statement about why did they build this so far out here? There wasn't nobody around, and now it's all grown up. So it's interesting how, the planning and kind of prepare ahead for the houses, it works out.
Over on Mary Drive, what's now the Recreation Center, we called it the Civic Center. And on Friday nights, Saturday nights, we'd go over there and they'd have dances, and the parents, everybody just getting the kids, we'd all go over and hang out, and they'd have stuff to eat. And the Civic Center was the go-to place. And that was in the, I guess, late 60s is when maybe early 70s.
I became the official president of the Hearst Soccer Association in 1978. And in the fall of 1978, we had our first season, and we had 900 players, and they had no place to play because, well, we did have places, but we didn't have soccer fields in Hearst. The individual that I worked with at the Parks Board was Alan Heindel. He was the Parks Director. And during that 16 years that we worked together with Alan and his group, they put five new soccer fields went out there. 4 baseball fields were going in. So what you see today is what we probably worked with back in the day I was on the Parks Board.
In Parks, we really took the bull by the horns, and once that organization started to bring on some people that had degrees in turf management and in landscape design, we started to turn things around pretty quickly.
We want to do something for the senior citizens. So John Butler says, well, why don't we have a dinner for them? So John says, well, I work for a meat company. I'll furnish the meat if the rest of the board members furnishes the rest of the food. So I said, well, I'll do the beans.
And he thought that seniors needed something special, and he felt like Christmas time was a good time. So he started that senior dinner, and it started out small.
So the first year, I think 1965, we had probably 100 people to visit the senior citizen dinner.
This year will be the 44th year, because I know the citizens love it so much, and the seniors look forward to that.
So through the years, it's grown to over 900.
So it became the John Butler Memorial Senior Citizens Banquet.
In the 60s, the library moved to 700 Mary Drive, and they began to expand as the new City Hall was built. The city offices moved out, and so the library was able to expand into their space. It was remodeled.
The driving force behind the library expansion was a lady by the name of Iris Goyen. Iris was the library director and facilitated its growth.
The first little library building was moved down on Berry Drive by the Recreation Center.
Iris and I went to the city council. As it happened, they were considering doing a bond issue anyway.
They started getting ready to do construction for the new library, and they had the groundbreaking for it 50 years after the library was established. In 1977, they had the groundbreaking for the new library. In 80 is when I became a part of the library board, and that was when Alan Heindel was brought in to be our librarian.
Oh my gosh, they're offering me an opportunity to automate the library. 2 years later, we had a VIA program that was one of the stellar programs in the state. And then we had worked with HCE Computers on the second goal, which was automation. And we spent 2 years developing our own library automation system called IELPS, which NCR backed, and they were starting to promote it nationally. I mean, it really started to take off. Putting it all together, it moved the library in a far different direction than it had been in the past.
That was a smart move on their part because it led to being the first in the area to have computers and internet. Going on to the 90s was when we had been in the library about 10 years, and we began to remodel.
The computer center was brand new because we were going not in the direction of cable programming again, but we were using those resources, my staff, again going back to Debbie Smith at that time, and that was followed up by Jesse in order to develop a computer center. And that was sort of state of the art at the time. And then we had this big reading room, which we hadn't had before. We made real advances in the children's area, created staff rooms that we didn't have before.
I've seen a lot of things happen. The library has grown from being a little county station to being probably one of the best libraries in the state. And that's quite an accomplishment. That speaks well for our staff.
While I was mayor population increased, those 10 years, increased from 13,000 to 32,000. So that was the big growth years.
We went through several really traumatic issues during that time frame. One was a downturn in the 80s, financial crisis in the 80s, and we also went through the Northeast Mall expansion project. We'd worked diligently with Simon Development. Northeast Mall was kind of the goose that laid the golden egg, is what the city council always said for the city of Hurst. The mall was a big player in making Hurst what it is today. The redevelopment of Hurst City Hall together, which was traumatic because we had to move the entire City Hall out of that facility and put it in a shopping center down on Pipeline Road.
Our old City Hall was on Mary Drive, and it was cramped for the space that we had available. The city wanted to build a new facility, so they found some land up there and built a new City Hall. So from then, we really grew as far as recreation is considered for the youth and the senior citizens.
We turned things around completely. We had state-of-the-art ball fields. People came from all over to use the soccer fields. We managed to get 2 national girls softball tournaments in Hurst on those fields. We developed some major parks, our community park. We developed Mayfair Park. We developed Echo Hills Park. We built 2 brand new aquatic centers. We put up all of the playgrounds, and there were like 17 playgrounds on a rotational basis to be replaced every 10 years, so that every year a new playground was replaced. I mean, those are the type of things that really stood out. We acquired enough land to build a community park. We acquired the property to develop Rickle Park, a really unique natural park in South Hurst. So a lot was done within a very short period of time, and the catalyst for that was the half-cent sales tax that threw that $5 million a year into the Community Services Development Fund.
We had clean neighborhoods. We had low, almost non-existent crime.
Chief Joe Watson, he was the only one on the police force, and he had volunteers that helped him, and that's all the police force we had, and that was located down on Holder.
He became the first paid city marshal, and then and I think Chief Watson, I think I remember he had actually built some houses, or he was a contractor. He didn't come from law enforcement, I don't believe. This was the first law enforcement job he had.
So on October 30th of 78, I was sworn in as a police officer and went to the academy and got out and started my career at the police department that lasted for 40 years. The town at that point, there was no technology. All you had was the lights, which was 2 round bubbles, and a switch to turn the lights on, another switch for the siren, and a radio and a spotlight. That's all there was in the car. You had a 12-gauge shotgun, and you had the .45 that you carried. And you might have a stick, we'll call it a billy club type, if you needed that. So there was also no cell phones in those days. So nothing was as quick as it is now. When I first started, and even through CID, a lot of it, everything was handwritten. You would write it, and then if it needed to be typed, the secretary would type it into a report.
The fire department was built, they had a 2-bay fire department down on Holder Drive, and the fire department was volunteer. Charlie Driscoll, who was a significant player in the community, told me a story about the volunteer fire department got the call to come to a fire. And when they got there in the fire truck, they realized that they had unspooled the hose all the way to the site, so they had to go back and get the water hose before they could fight the fire.
Our social life in the Hurst Euless Bedford, but essentially in Hurst, was actually built around our churches. We all went to church on Sunday. Didn't make any difference which church it was. And sometimes we had Methodists that came to our Baptist church and such.
Hurst was booming. People coming in. Hurst was building houses and this sort of thing. And everybody came in to visit with me. That was wonderful, and I'm getting acquainted and talking to them. And then they'd talk about what the church was doing and how they had been active and all this sort of thing. And we had
softball teams and basketball and all kinds of stuff going on for children. We reached out into the community. I got to looking, and a lot of these people that were coming by to see me were movers and shakers in the church and in the community.
Those in city government, those in community service, they came from churches and from a perspective of faith that I think gave direction to value and integrity, a future focus. The city of Hurst, for example, has always been progressive. But so much of that arrived, I think, out of a sense of faith.
In 1957, Hurst and Euless, where they touch borders down in the southern part of our community, got together and had Hurst Euless ISD. Well, the following year, Bedford said, yeah, we'll play. And so then we started Hurst Euless Bedford.
Larry Bell gave the land for what is now the Keys School, Central Junior High and the Keys School. But Larry Bell gave the land if the three would come together in the school district. So thus HEB was born.
For many years through the 60s and 70s, HEB was building a school building a year and sometimes two. So that's how rapid their growth was.
North Hurst, which is Hurst Junior High now, is where I first taught, and that was there. First year we were in this school district, I taught at what is now Hurst Junior High. That was North Hurst Elementary School. And the next year, the superintendent, Joe Humphreys, called us in and said, we're going to move you over to the new school that's being built called North Euless Elementary. You'll be the principal, and Pat, you will be one of his teachers. He will be your boss.
They did not have elementary art teachers, and I was hired as an elementary art teacher. I had 4 schools a month. North Euless, South Euless, Oakwood Terrace, and Stonegate. I put my brushes in the car and my painting in the car and whatever I needed for the students, and I went from school to school. Didn't know any better and thought that was the way to go and loved it.
Charles Wages was the assistant superintendent at that time, and we had a conversation over the telephone interview with him, and he hired us on the phone. So we get in our car and drive down to see where the school district was. And we came down, at that point it was only Highway 180 went through the area, and we drove right on through, didn't even know we had been in Hurst. The only motel we could find was the Dude Motel over on Belknap Street in Fort Worth. So we stayed overnight in the Dude Motel, went back home, got our U-Haul trailer, and came down here. We moved here, settled in, began our work at Hurst Junior High School.
11 out of the last 12 years. Out of 200 largest districts in the state of Texas, HEB is number 1.
Every kid could have a great education. He's got to put in his effort in order to do so, but the opportunity is there if they're willing to attack that opportunity.
And I think we created a culture that said it doesn't matter who walks in the door. By golly, they're going to have a chance to have some miracles.
We have an international baccalaureate program at both our high schools, which is usually for private schools, but we have it at 2 public schools.
Trinity High School was the first school, to my knowledge, at least in the state of Texas, that had a college campus arrangement.
You build a climate where the kids feel a part of the school.
Superintendent of schools out here at the time was Newell O'Dale, and he was a tall guy, and he was an extrovert if there ever was one. So one day after Rotary Club, we were sitting around. He said, what we need out here is a junior college. And that's what started. So Dr. Ralph Butts and Dr. J. Artis Bell, and I helped a little, I guess. They got things rolling, and 2 or 3 years later, we had a junior college. So
the district was formed in 1965. The first campus was opened in 1967. That was the South Campus. So it opened in 67, and then the Northeast Campus opened in 68. In 1996, when I started working there, it had about, I think, 9,000 students. I don't know how many millions of dollars would have been spent by the students that we've had over the years. The economic impact was just amazing of what we had in the city of Hurst.